Hello, everybody. It's Alex here again as the co-host. We have actually got a very, very interesting one to go through today, which is going to be lettings regulations. Just with the new people that obviously are now coming on to obviously our vodcast as well. I just want to introduce myself, give myself a bit of a sort of background. So I've basically been in sort of a estate agency for quite a number of years. I actually just last year opened up my own company, and I opened up my own company with Matteo. And we've been doing this for quite some time now, and obviously sort of learning the new regulations is something that is rather quite sort of difficult to keep up to sort of speed with. But yeah, with obviously without further ado, I'm now going to introduce you to my guest, and this one is Matteo. So Matteo, how are you doing?
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Alex. How are you?
How's things over there? Obviously, it's very, very nice and warm today. So I hope everyone is enjoying the sun as well and the warm heat. But yeah, no. So obviously, with regarding sort of this as well. So obviously, with our previous vodcast as well, I just want to thank everybody who got in touch. Obviously, Rita, thank you again, and yeah, obviously everybody else that got in touch as well. Now, obviously, this time lines are open. So obviously, if you do have any other questions about any of the stuff that we go through today, then do let us know. We'll be more than happy to take your questions. But yeah, obviously, without further ado, we're going to go through, obviously, what we need to go through today. And what I think is going to be a very crucial element of what people need to understand with the new regulations, obviously, with lettings in this nowadays, and obviously with London as well. So obviously, Matteo, so with your background at the moment, if you can just let people know, obviously, sort of what you've done and where you've sort of come now, and then we can obviously commence.
Yeah, certainly. Good evening, everyone. First of all, my name is Matteo. I've been working in properties for almost 15 years now. First 5 years back in Italy, where I'm from, and the last 10 in London. I've been working as an estate agent for many companies, corporates, and independent. Opened my own one with Alex last year. Very exciting moments, in fact. And yeah, here tonight to answer your questions if you have any.
Exactly. And I think obviously on this one as well, yeah, it's a big step for us as well. So obviously it's still quite nerve-wracking, but we're still going ahead, and it's actually not doing too badly with the market at the moment, with obviously the crisis and everything else coming into play. But yeah, so what we're going to go through today is some crucial elements which our social media has obviously sort of said that they wanted to go through with our estate agency. And the main ones are obviously the HMO licensing we're going to cover today, EPC regulations as well, the gas safety certificates, smoke alarms, which is very important nowadays as well. And the main one as well, which is EICR electrical certificate, which has just come in July. So it's gonna be obviously coming through now. And the last two, if we can cover these ones, then I will. It's going to be right to rent and also the deposit system as well. And obviously with the admin fees that are now being waived. But without further ado, so the HMO licensing, obviously there's now selective, additional, and also mandatory HMOs. So Matteo, with this one, if you could just let me know a bit about obviously the HMO licensing regulations nowadays, and then we can sort of go from there.
Yeah, there have been a lot of changes in the last few years. HMO regulation came into place, I think it was in 2006.
Yeah,
we can talk about it. Let's explain to people at home what an HMO is first. So,
of course.
HMO means house in multiple occupation, and basically a property occupied by 3 or more people that are unrelated between each other, so that are from 2 or more households. So, for instance, if three friends are looking to rent a property together, then they will be renting an HMO because they are not related to each other. If three cousins are going to rent a property, then they won't be considered an HMO because they are part.
So sorry, just to sort of interrupt on this one. So let's say hypothetically you had a property of so let's say sort of a brother and sister and then their friend. Would that come under the HMO licensing, or what would that come under?
Yeah, that will become under an HMO because you have 2 households. So one household, which is brother and sister, and then the second household, which is the friend. If that friend was the boyfriend of the sister, then it would be considered one household because it would be considered part of the same family. Remember that even to be considered a family under this regulation, you need to be in a relation. That doesn't mean that you need to be married. It could be
any kind of sort of relation would come under one household then.
Correct.
Okay, fantastic. And obviously with this one as well, so there's obviously selective, mandatory, and additional as well. I know now, obviously with Southwark, they've sort of tightened down on this one, and it's gone down to selective. So could you give me a bit more of an insight on obviously the selective HMO licensing regulations in that area?
Yeah, certainly. So basically, originally, until a few years ago, there was only one kind of HMO in which you needed a license. Those licenses were called mandatory. So basically, you needed a license only if you had 5 or more people living in a property that had 3 or more stories. So technically, basically, all the houses that have more than 5 people living in there. But from 2018, and in some council in London, even from before, from 2015, like in Southwark, if you live in a property with more than 3 people, then automatically you will need a license. 3 people unrelated, you will need a license. As you said, there are 3 kind of licensing in Southwark. Mandatory, that means basically 5 or more people living in a property in general. Doesn't matter if it's a house or an apartment, from 2015. So if you occupy, if 3 or more people occupy a flat or a house, doesn't matter how many stories, then you will need a license. You will need to apply for a license.
So that would come under the selective HMO licensing in this area then.
That one will become under the additional.
So that's the additional HMO licensing. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, 3 or more would be, sorry, three people would be additional licensing.
Of course.
There are 5 or more will be mandatory. And then also they introduce a new one that is called selective, that basically insert in some of the areas within the Southwark Council, you will need a license no matter what. So even if you rent a studio flat, even if you have 1 person living in a studio flat,
I was going to say,
in a selective area, you will need the license. In fact, probably you will remember in Old Kent Road, for instance.
Yeah, well, funny you say that. So I do remember that one, buddy. And I think the interesting part is obviously with Alex and Matteo estate agent, we actually had one that came up, and like you said, it was in Old Kent Road, and I originally didn't realize that obviously when it comes to selective or additional HMO licensings that you needed these, they were compulsory for any type of property. But obviously when we got in touch with the council and when we obviously did these sort of procedures, they then said to us, they were like, well, look, you have to obviously get this. Obviously sort of scraping on the top of this one as well, I know it does completely depend on the area as well. But with the pricing, obviously, there's a certain amount of pricing that you have to do for the HMO licensing as well.
Yeah.
So with these ones, I think if I remember correctly, so Old Kent Road was around about sort of £500 to £400 for the annual year of the HMO licensing. But I know one thing is that it comes in 1, 3, or 5 years. So 1, 3, or 5 years, you can. It's a big rarity to obviously get the 5-year sort of warranty or sort of certificate for the HMO licensing. I think normally they validate it to either 1 year or 3 years. So Matteo, do you have anything to sort of add to this as well?
Yeah, for instance, the last one that we did was for 5 years. It cost the landlord around £500. The biggest the property it is will be more expensive, but we are talking about, as you said, £500. £500 for the big properties, 400, 300 or 400 for like one beds in selective areas. So it's not the end of the world, because if you think like £500 and it will last 5 years, it's gonna be £100 a year, and it's important to comply, because if you don't, you could be liable to pay a £30,000 fine for the council. So you can agree or not with these regulations, but at the end of the day, you have to do it if you are a landlord in these situations.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think obviously with obviously the HMO licensings that we've been going through at the same time, I remember there was actually another one that we went through as well, which was in Canary Wharf. Do you remember how much that one was? Because I think I do remember this one. Obviously, it was quite a big flat. It was on 2 floors. It was nearly 4-bedroom property, and obviously with Canary Wharf area, it comes into Tower Hamlets. So with Tower Hamlets, then it comes into a selective HMO licensing, which I think a lot of people do come under as well. So I think, if I remember correctly, was that one around about sort of £600, £700 for the year?
Yeah, it was something like that. I think less than that, but probably £500 or £600.
Yeah.
And it will last 5 years. So it's not too bad. Lot of landlords are worried that they're going to they will need to do a lot of works to the property, but it's not yes, you do need eventually to do some works on the property, but you're not going to spend a lot of money to do those amendments. We're talking about fire doors and smoke alarm system.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, I hope that's helped out a lot of people out there at the moment. We can obviously touch base on this one, and also just let you guys know, if you do have any other questions at all, please do get in touch. We will be more than happy to help, and we can sort of touch base on this one later on in the program anyway. But another thing that obviously a lot of people are looking into as well is now obviously the new regulations coming up, and agencies obviously needing to know this as well, but also landlords do as well if you're doing it privately. But another thing that we do need to cover is the EPCs. Now, I know for a fact that obviously this year the EPC has come to the point where it has to be above an E. Now, this is any property out there that does get let. So guys out there, girls out there, anybody out there, if you are looking to let out a property, it has to be above an E. Now, with the EPC regulations, and I'll pass you over to Matteo as well in a second, I know that obviously there is certain criteria with that, and we can actually fix it on the EPC as well. So they give you a certain amount of grades. So if I remember correctly, it's either very poor, good, very good, excellent. Now, if it's in the excellent bracket, then you're looking at sort of an EPC that's going to be around about B. If it's very poor to poor, then you're looking at it's going to be jumping down to probably around about an E, potentially even an F. But that is not a big worry. So, Matteo, I will pass it over to you now to obviously explain a little bit more about this one as well, buddy.
Yeah, basically, in England, if you want to rent out a property, you need an EPC, which is a 2 or 3 page document. It's called EPC, Energy Performance Certificate. they will give you a rate from A to G. And as Alex said, from a couple of years ago, all the properties, all the new property on the market needs to have an EPC of E or over. That means that if you have a property that has an EPC F, for instance, if you have a very old properties that needs new radiators, new boiler, double glaze, you need to update that property to make sure that your rate will come up. Sometimes it's just a matter to change the light bulb.
I was going to say, so obviously there's a lot of minor things that you can do to obviously sort of also generate the EPC to sort of jump up a little bit as well, isn't there?
Yeah, we had somebody with an F that changed the light bulb because he had like not efficient light bulbs. He changed it to the efficient one and he reached the E. So
there you go. There you go.
A lot of people are worried about this to comply with these regulations, but it's very easy, and every estate agent or
and I do remember years and years ago when we were up in sort of Bow area, and we were in an office around that area, and I remember obviously one of the properties obviously being very, very old. So when it was very old, the EPC regulations on this one made the efficiency very, very low. So obviously when they sort of went through the EPC efficiencies, now it made them not be able to put up the EPC too high, which is obviously a big issue. Now there is just genuinely you cannot sort of always bump up that EPC. And obviously with that one, then you need to make sure that the council are noted on this one, and then you have a certificate for it. So with this, obviously, Matteo, you can obviously sort of I can pass it over to you, but with regarding sort of the EPC, let's say you could not sort of make it any higher. What's the next situation on this one then?
Yeah, for instance, as Alex, you were saying, we used to work in this beautiful development called Bow in Tower Hamlet. We still have properties up there. There are beautiful properties. Some of them, they are Victorian properties. Some of them, even if you do the best to make your EPC look better, if you reach that level, if you prove that you did everything in your power to comply with the EPC regulation, even if you don't reach the E level, because here we are talking about grade 2 listed building. Of course, if you have a grade 2 listed building with a single glaze factory window, the council will never let you, will never give you the possibility or the chance to change those windows with a double glaze. You will look terrible. It would be a shame for all the people that are enjoying this kind of buildings around London. So in that case, they will give you an exemption. They will say, okay, you did everything in your power to increase the EPC. Yeah. Therefore, you will be exempt. You won't need to.
So the exemption is something that's quite easy to get then.
Very easy. You just need an engineer that come over and say, yes, Mr. X did all the works necessary to reach the level. We couldn't reach that level, but because it's a period property, you will be allowed to rent it out anyway. So the council or the government will give you the okay anyway. It's very easy. We did it twice, and it's very, very easy process. And
fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah, I think realistically, the main point obviously that we're trying to get over is that don't threat about obviously the EPCs out there. You know, obviously there are sort of regulations that you need to uphold, and there are regulations with the lettings out there. You know, but at the same time, you do not need to worry about it, because the advice that we can give and the advice that we can give sort of back sort of stage behind the scenes, we can help you out with this. And I think it's a lot of people, a lot of landlords are like, oh God, which agent to trust? Sort of, if I do it on my own, can I do it on my own? Is there enough regulations that I think about? If you just sort of like, if you are doing it on your own, then just let us know and we can help you out on this one, and we can give free advice to you guys as well. But obviously, I'm looking at the timing at the moment, so we need to obviously sort of keep on going with this one. The gas cert, so gas safety regulations and also smoke alarms. I'm going to combine it as one because I think it is very, very crucial element that we need to bypass as well when it comes to lettings. So obviously, with the gas safety regulations, it is vitally important that you make sure that you do it every single year. Now, these ones, they will expire after a year. If you do not get it sorted, then you are liable as a landlord or either as an agent. And I think that is a crucial element of this one. But obviously, on the other side of things, so smoke alarms. Matteo, can you give me a bit of information, obviously, on smoke alarms? So regarding sort of the floors. So obviously, that's something that we need to sort of go through.
Yeah. Yes. Speaking about gas certificate, very important, because a bad boiler, a boiler that is not checked regularly, it could kill you. It could kill your tenant. So, guys, be very careful with that. Make sure that you do it every year.
The regulations have to be on point on this one then.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of smoke detectors as well, make sure you have a smoke detectors for each floor of your property. If you live, if you are renting out a dwelling with one floor, obviously you put it only, maybe not in the kitchen, just next to the kitchen. Otherwise, it goes off every time that you cook something. Put it maybe in the living room. But make sure that the smoke detector is present on each floor. Then, in case of HMO, then we need to do another.
Yeah, they obviously so they go into the HMO regulations as well, don't they?
Yeah. For the HMO, it's more complicated. Maybe if you guys need any help with that, please email us and we can send you all the documentation, because it depends how many rooms do you have, etc., etc. But if you have a standard flat, like two-bedroom apartment, make sure that you have at least one smoke detector on each floor of your property. And also, if you have gas, so if you have a combi boiler, make sure you buy a monoxide carbon alarm. Again, we are talking about £20 investment, so it's very, very
regarding. Sorry to interrupt on this one, buddy. So regarding the smoke alarms, now you did say that it needs to be on every floor. With the HMO licensing, isn't it correct that you need it in each room or not?
Yeah, you need in certain HMO you will need it on each room, and in certain HMO you will need it to be interconnected between each other. So it's more complicated.
Fantastic. Okay, no worries at all. So I'm just sort of obviously looking at timing at the moment. There are just a couple more things I do want to run through with you today, Matteo, which is the EICR electrical regulations that are coming in. I think this is a very, very crucial one that not many people do know about at this moment in time. Now, with this one, I do know that it is 5 years. Is that correct?
5 years, sorry, for which?
So let's say, sorry, that wasn't very explained very well, but essentially what they need to do is they need to obviously get an electric certificate coming out.
Yeah, sorry, yes.
Now, with the electrical certificate that comes out to the property, that then means that when they've done it and they passed it, hopefully, then the electrical certificate will last for 5 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Every 5 years, you will need an electrician to test all your circuits and all the plugs. Remember that you want your electrician to check every single plugs and every single circuit of your property to comply with the new regulations. yes, from the 1st of July of this year, all properties in England will need an electric certificate. As Alex said, every 5 years you will need to renew it. Price goes from under.
Well, I remember we just literally did one on one that we have up in Bow, and yeah, obviously the landlords sort of did this one, but we had to make sure that we had it in writing that the electrical certificate was passed correctly with the mandatory sort of regulations that are coming up at the moment.
Correct.
And I think the main question that a lot of people are having at the moment is that how long does it last for? And I think obviously if we can cover that it is 5 years, guys, it is 5 years that it lasts for, then you do not need to. If you get it sorted from the July, so from the beginning of July, and then you get it sorted from after that, with the EICR regulations, that means you don't have to do it for another 5 years, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So we've obviously gone through that one, and I think we sort of mainly covered that one as well. We can go into more in depth with this one if people do want to, maybe on the next podcast that we do. The last two that I do want to cover, and I really want to try and squeeze this in with you guys as well, is the right to rent check and deposit. These are another two crucial elements that a lot of people do misinterpret when it comes to the lettings regulations at this moment in time. So with the right to rent, now I'm going to sort of pass it over to Matteo on this one, but with the right to rent, you need to make sure that if you are a landlord or an agent, you need to get the pass, so the passports at the start of when you get the offer. Now, it does not need to be a photo, so it doesn't need to be they don't need to come to the office, or they don't need to come to you guys or whoever it is. They just need to send over a photo at the start. That's to basically in line with the government regulations of the new right to rent checks that needs to be done. Now at the end, or not at the end, but when you get them to come in and sign the contracts, or either they sign it over DocuSign, they need to make sure that they have a passport with them at that moment in time. So those are the two crucial elements that I think we obviously need to pick up when it comes to the right to rent checks. But Matteo, do you have any other sort of anything else that you want to sort of add on to that at all?
Yeah, remember that again, as Alex said, by law, you need to check the passport of the tenant that is moving in your new flat. You need to make sure that that tenant is allowed to live in the UK. So a passport would be more than enough if he's European or from the UK. In some cases, you will need to see a visa. But yeah, have a look at the original copy of their passport once you meet them at the property to give them the key.
Fantastic. And with this one, can you take sort of IDs, or does it have to be passports?
Yeah, IDs are fine. If for instance, I'm from Italy, a carta d'identità, like an ID from a European country, will work fine. Passport are preferred. It's better a passport. And a visa. For instance, if you're coming from the US, you will need to show the landlord or the estate agent your US passport and your permit, your visa.
Okay.
And that was interesting because during the COVID-19, the government said it's fine if you just show them, if the tenant showed the landlord a picture only, but nowadays you have to check. You need to check the passport in person.
Is the government regulations changing with Brexit coming up?
Maybe they will get stricter. I hope not, but we don't know.
Of course. Okay, fantastic. And the last little question, obviously, I want to fire over to you, Matteo, is deposits. Now, this is a big thing because a lot of people do get stung on this one, and you do need to make sure that you do secure it, guys. These are for landlords out there, because if you don't, there are some big fines that do come up. So, Matteo, if I pass it over to you on this one, obviously talk about my deposits and DPS. With these ones, how do they sort of secure it? How does it work? When do you need to secure it, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, basically from a few years now, I think, now I don't remember exactly, but I think from 2013 or 14, you have to protect the deposit in a government approved scheme. At the moment, I think there are three of them: DPS, My Deposit, and TDS. If you are a landlord out there, don't keep the deposit in your bank account.
Yeah.
It's the worst things that you can do. Your tenants could take you to court. You will be possibly liable to pay 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, it's 3 times, isn't it? 3 times the deposit rental amount.
Yeah, it's 2 or 3 times. So
yeah,
guys, protect the deposit. It's very important. Is a rule. And remember that the deposit from last year, it cannot be more than 5 weeks rent. So don't ask more than 5 weeks rent, because it's not allowed. You are not allowed, and the estate agents out there, you are not allowed to charge administration fee to tenants. This was the fee ban from.
Yeah, exactly. So we've sort of covered deposits. So obviously my deposit and DPS as well. With these ones, you do need to make sure that you do cover these ones. With this, I do recommend landlords out there, sort of investors, whoever's basically looking to purchase their sort of first property or their second property or whatever it is, if they are looking to rent it out, then do make sure that you cover these points and you do make them very crucial. Another thing that I do want to quickly cover, and I did think about this as well, is the check-in report. So check-in and check-out. Now, when you secure a deposit, that is securing deposit. That doesn't really mean a huge amount unless you have a check-in report or a check-out report. Now, if you have a check-in report and a check-out report, what that means is that you can then check the property. It literally is in the name. So you check the property on how it is at that point. So before the tenants move in, you check how it is, make sure that there's any scuffs or anything like that. It's all jotted down. Now, if there is any notified details that are not the exact same from the check-in to the check-out, from when the tenants move in to when tenants move out, that is when the deposit comes into play. Now, with the deposit coming into play, you can then deduct a certain amount of money from that deposit, from the check-in to the check-out. With obviously your agent, or if you're doing it on your own, you need to make sure that you do have a discussion with your inventory clerk. But Matteo, do you have any other sort of answers that you sort of want to interact with this one as well?
No, I think it was more than exhaustive. I mean, yeah, it's important, I think, to have an inventory done, because then if your tenants break something, and then you won't be able to prove that unless you pay an inventory clerk to check the property condition before the check-in. And it's very good for tenants as well. So if you are good tenants out there, you're listening, pretend for the landlord to do a checking report, so you have the proof that you haven't broken anything.
Yeah, exactly. So you basically make sure that the tenants cover themselves and also the landlord cover themselves as well, which is a win-win really. So then you know for a fact that you're going to get your property back as perfect as you gave it to them as well. But look, guys, we have now run out of time, but I hope that was of some help. We've actually got a very special guest next week. So do keep in touch and do come on next week with us. And we would love to hear from everybody as well. But thank you again, and we'll see you all very soon.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.